Yo, what's up guys and gals, this is Jacob Karash from TB10 Studios, and today we're going to discuss why or why not you should be shooting in log. So let's get right into the video. So we are here to talk about shooting in log. Now, what exactly is log? Log actually stands for logarithmic. And log maximizes the dynamic range that is put out by your camera's sensor, as well as the full color capability from your camera. Now, shooting in log helps you avoid those cumbersome, power-intensive, and storage-filling RAW files that you can get from maybe Red cameras, or some Blackmagic cameras, or ARRI cameras. A lot of that, they're humongous files that take up storage real quick, and a lot of editing software struggle with processing that kind of images because of the large file sizes and the amount of detail and data that is smashed into that file. So, if you're just editing off a MacBook or a Windows 10 or Windows 11 laptop, you won't really be able to process those incredibly large file sizes, and that's why log is so incredibly useful. So what exactly are the pros and cons of shooting in log? Well, some of the pros are, like we said earlier, log maximizes the overall dynamic range that your camera's sensor can put out. Like this Nikon D4 can put out, shooting in log, a whopping 12 stops of dynamic range. Something like the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro can give out, shooting in log instead of RAW, almost 14 stops of dynamic range. And then the Canon R5C, their newest cinema camera, can put out almost, I believe, 15 stops of dynamic range, which is absolutely incredible for a digital camera. Another pro when it comes to shooting in log is you have more flexibility in post-production, specifically color grading, because the saturation is toned down a bit in log, and so is the overall shadows are brought up, so you have more data in the shadows, and the highlights are brought down, so you have more data in the highlights. So you have full creative control to figure out your own style, or just to maximize the potential that your camera has in editing. I personally love shooting in log. I shoot in log for everything, except for certain things that I just might be too hard to do all that work. But we'll get more into that when we talk about the cons of shooting in log. So, the first con when it comes to shooting in log would be it takes more time and a lot more effort in the post-production side of video. Now, that means you have to color grade it, you have to add your own style to it. And you don't necessarily have to add your own style to it, but you really you're doing a lot of extra work. Now, for a talking head video like this, it's not that difficult. That just adds maybe 15 more minutes to my editing process, in which this editing work is not the hardest thing to do. Now, I shot log in my most recent project for a church when I did the interviews. I shot in log so I could get the best looking image possible, and I could add my own style to it. And I kind of worked with my client to figure out what kind of look they wanted themselves. So that's a big plus about log, is that you're able to have your own creative style as well as collaborate with your client about what they would like to see. Now, another issue, or con about shooting in log, is that it really depends on your camera's limitations. Like this older 2012 Nikon D4 shoots only 8-bit color, which means I have a limited range of adjusting that I can do in the post-production side. So if I pull too much color, I can get data fragments, artifacts, and just overall crunchiness, which you don't want to see in a professional image. Now, most cameras, or newer cameras, which happen to be more expensive, shoot 10-bit, 12-bit, some even shoot 14-bit color, which is absolutely incredible, and it gives you much more room to mess with the color in post-production without tearing it apart and getting those data artifacts. Now this one, like I said, shoots in 8-bit, which is standard for most older DSLRs and some very early mirrorless cameras. That also includes like most camcorders shoot 8-bit, and some older prosumer camcorders also shoot 8-bit. Now some newer prosumer camcorders like the Canon XF605 can shoot 10-bit color and also has its own Canon Log 2 profile built into it, which I think is an absolutely incredible idea. Now, I'm getting slightly off track here. But, so this camera, the Nikon D4, if you've seen one of my older videos on the different color profiles, you may know that the Nikon D4 does not come with its own log profile, which most cameras of the time didn't, because these were meant for photos and not all videos. In fact, this camera is a sport photo camera that happens to have some video features. But these video features are absolutely incredible. I absolutely love this camera, and I will be using it until it dies. But the only issue is, yes, it shoots 8-bit, it has a recording limit on it, which I hate, and it didn't come with its own log profile. So I created my own one called JLog. And technically, there is a log profile out there also named JLog, but I made my own log profile. In fact, I'm shooting in it right now. Now, it's not the best. It does not get all 12 stops of dynamic range from this camera. It gets about 11.5, which I personally think is close enough. It's much better than the standard profile, or the vivid profile, or the portrait or landscape profiles that are also on this camera. Now, they do have a Nikon like fan-made log profile called Cinelike D, and personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of it at first, because when I first installed it, it was just way oversaturated. I didn't realize that you yourself had to adjust the saturation in camera, because it's different for every camera. So the creator of it did not mess with the saturation. And I was like, oh, okay. So after fiddling with it for a bit, I came to realize this has a lot of potential and does get the full 12. In fact, maybe even more than what's listed from Nikon's D4 listing. Because what's listed is it says it gets 12, but with all the tests that I ran, it gets about 12.4 stops of dynamic range. But alright, let's go shoot some footage. Welcome to my den. It is very dark in here. I personally prefer to edit in the dark. I film in the light, I edit in the dark. Don't know why, I just personally prefer it. I like the dark. But let's open up DaVinci Resolve. I also will have a video talking about the importance of or like a good organizational structure. Like a common media folder, which if I can find the video, I will link in the description down below, because the common media folder for Premiere Pro is the most useful thing in the world. Look at this. This is my common media folder. I've got Scratch projects where I put the footage, and it's all listed. I have examples, and then, oh, look, it's this video right here, Why Shootin' Log. And it's got the name, Why Shootin' Log, short name, the date, and then the camera. Oh, and it's got all the clips. It's got all the clips I just shot, including the clip you saw earlier. Isn't that great? There you go. It's right there. And I've got all the, like, here's a JLog footage. And here's some Cinelog, or, jeez, Cineflat footage. I gotta remember that. Let's start with the main footage that I shot in JLog. I know I am very, very dark. Maybe I'll just turn off my webcam at this point. Like, why use it? I want to go full screen because I like to. Let's create a new timeline. I'm gonna call this main shot, and then I'm gonna go over to the color tab, close out a gallery, and choose a nice hero shot. Like that, I guess, works perfectly fine. Now I'm gonna do a very basic node system here today because I just don't want to do a bunch of editing and color grading. Just so y'all aren't super confused and yeah. But so I just want to make this easier for y'all. So that's what I'm gonna do. My desk is all really messy. Organizational on the computer, yes. I'm very organized on the computer, but
Anywhere else? No. To be honest, I'm not a very organized person, but it helps the people I work with being organized, so it's what I do. So let's bring down the lift here in our color, because I do have a LUT. I do technically have a custom LUT, personal LUT, that brings JLog into Rec 709. I have it. And I also have a different studio LUT, but I don't use that one. And then I've got the Cineflat LUT, which is not meant for this. And I've got a B-roll LUT, but that's for a different thing. But I do have my Rec 709 studio LUT. And in fact, I will use this today. I will use this today. And now, obviously, not every LUT's perfect. You need to adjust it a bit more still. Like, I'm gonna bring the gain up actually just a little bit. No, actually, I don't need to. Yeah, I'm impressed with how well I did on this. We'll bring that down a bit. We can bring the gain up just a tad bit. Increase contrast. No, not pivot. Increase contrast. And then bring pivot. Yeah, there we go. So already, that's straight up log right there. That's JLog. And this is converting it right into Rec 709. So a basic color correction, which is very important. After you have this nailed down, then you can move on to your stylistic choices. Now you can see, I have a lot of detail in the shadows in my shirt, behind my the shadow right there by my piggy bank, which is the manliest thing I've ever said. And I also have a lot of detail in the highlights, like off the reflection of my globe and that photo of me and my master at Taekwondo. Now, this makes it look more like it came straight out of a camera. It makes it look a lot better. Now what I do, I add my own personal film look to it, which you all know if you've watched some of my previous videos. I go into the curves, and I wash out a little bit. Just bring that down a tad. Personally, I like that. And then bring up the shadows here so it kind of washes them out a bit. You don't have to do this. I just personally like doing that. And that's what I like to do. Now, I go to the very end one, and I choose a LUT. You can add your own grade by like going in here and doing stuff, but most of y'all will be using LUTs, downloading LUTs from other people. Now, we can use LUTs from other people, or the basic film look LUTs here in DaVinci. Like, we could use this Rec 709 to Kodak film, and then what you do is you go here and you adjust, usually like 0.5, or for this one just a bit under. So we could do that, and then boom, you got a film look here. But personally, my skin tone's a bit too green, and that bothers me. And so I'm gonna increase the magenta that goes into. That's not what I want to do. I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna just bring in the magenta a bit. Or actually, cool it down a bit. And bring in some magenta. There we go.